So on the second building, we're going to take and line up some windows. And what I want you to do is I'm going to use the guideline for the stories on the first building to kind of give the second building some beginning area. And I'm just going to take and I'm going to line up those guidelines and extend those orthogonal lines across. And to do my windows, I'm going to take and I'm going to take, and much like the doors, you're going to take and draw the lines that are parallel with the edges of your building. And remember, they're going to be different sizes. And I'm going to guesstimate halfway. You can measure if you want. And then if we want this to be a paned window, you're going to take that pane back to the vanishing point so that that window sits flat against the surface of the building. Okay, it's just a big window looking out. If I want to extend that window up, I'm going to take and find where the top of the next floor is. I'm going to repeat that method, and I'm just going to extend those lines, lining up my ruler, and I'm going to take, and where it crosses, where the cross in the window is, I'm just going to go back to the vanishing point so that that window continues. And I can take and I can do a little light shading to kind of give it the idea of glass. Okay? Maybe I want a billboard sign on top of this building. So I'm going to build a billboard sign. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to extend for some poles on the top of the building. I'm going to extend those first lines up a bit. And then I'm going to use my ruler and go from the vanishing point. I'm going to find the top of the sign, and then I want to leave a little gap between the sign and the bottom and the top of the building. So I'm going to take and I'm just going to line up so that I have a little bit of the sign. So now I've got kind of a billboard. Now here's the thing about lettering. The lettering, when you're doing down the side, has to recede as well. So you can try to freehand this. So I'm going to say eat at Joe's. Okay, and you can see that I just kind of took and lined it up like I was writing on a flat piece of paper on the side. You can do block letters and use your perspective. You can freehand that, but if it doesn't look right, okay, you're going to have to sit and work with it a little bit to get it to where it fits correctly. All right, let's do some other things. Let's give a street in front of this sidewalk. So a street we're going to develop just like we developed the sidewalk, except our street is going to be very wide. So we're going to say it's going to be 3 inches. So I'm going to measure over from the edge of the sidewalk 3 inches. And I'm going to find the middle, because what runs down the middle of a street? The lines. So I'm going to measure over 1.5 inches and find the middle as well. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to run my street back from the vanishing point. I'm going to run it down all the way to the bottom of the page. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to extend this street back from the vanishing point. And you can see, because I made this little sidewalk, I'm going to make a cross street come. And the cross street just goes with the horizon line. Okay? So this becomes land, and then street, and then sidewalk. And then this becomes the edge of a street right here. Now we said we were going to make this two-way traffic, so we're going to divide the lines. The way that we're dividing the lines is I'm lining up my ruler with the vanishing point. The line at the front becomes the biggest line, and then I'm just going to take and go back, and my lines get shorter the farther back in space I get, because they've got to recede back in space. Okay? So that your street goes back into the distance. Alright, I'm going to give everybody a moment to get their street laid in. Oh, and I can create some lines on this street. Say for a minute that we want to make this area across the street a park. And in this park is going to be a swimming pool. So I'm going to take my ruler, and a little bit of ways from the edge of the street, I'm going to take and I'm going to create the longest end of the pool, however long you want that to be. I'm going to make it 2 inches. Okay? This is going to be a swimming pool. And I'm going to take, and just like the road, I'm going to make the sides of the pool go back into space, going back to the vanishing point. And then I'm going to take, and this is going to be kind of a small Junior Olympic pool, I'm going to take and I'm going to draw the back of the pool by taking and just making a line that is parallel with my horizon line. Now, we want it to look like it's going down into the earth. So the way that we're going to make it go down into the earth is I'm going to draw a little bit of the edge of the wall right there in that corner. And then just take your ruler and angle your ruler down depending on how deep you want your pool to be. Angle your ruler down. So this might be a diving pool. So there's one edge of the wall, and then there's the edge of the wall there. And then you can take and you can give some ripples to the top to kind of show that it's filled with water. Remember, we're just kind of sketching at the moment. If we were developing this more fully in color, we would be doing some other kind of detail work. We're just trying to get the concept of perspective at the moment. So there's that. Now we're going to give a pool house. A pool house, if you remember from our lesson on Friday, was we drew a first grade house. Remember the first grade house? If we just take and we start by drawing just a square, I'm going to draw a square and put a triangle on top of the square. And I'm just going to find the middle. I'm going to just freehand a triangle right now. And remember from our lesson on Friday, you took and you went back to the vanishing point to make the sides of that building, so the sides of our pool house, and then the roof of our pool house. can kind of come back to the vanishing point. I draw my parallel line, and then my parallel line with the roof here, it's got to angle. It's got to make that same angle as the roof. And if you want to give a door, just like you did on the doors on the other building, you draw the door jamb where you want the door jambs to be. So this is going to be a big opening, and the top of the door goes back to the vanishing point. Alright, last element that I'm going to show you is to how to make a series of objects recede into space. A series of objects being trees. Okay? Now, for the purpose of this exercise, I'm not going to spend a great deal of time talking about how to create a realistic tree. Basically, I want you to avoid making a lollipop tree, and a lollipop tree would be a circle with a trunk that's a stick. Okay? So I'm going to start by drawing my first tree. My first tree is going to be right here, and I'm going to make my first tree be big and kind of overlap the edge of the road. And notice that my first tree is going to this will be the biggest tree I have. I'm putting it in proportion roughly with the things that are around. And I'm just using some lines to indicate that tree, and I'm going to erase the things that are behind. And then I can take and I can use some of the things we've learned about shading, and I can shade just a little bit to make it a little rounded. Again, we're just kind of giving the idea of a tree.
You're really good at drawing trees.
Alright, and then I want to make a line of trees. This is a very formal park. It has trees that outline the edge of the road, but I need to make those trees recede into space. I need to make them get smaller in an orderly fashion. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my ruler and I'm going to go to the top of my tree, and I'm going to kind of make, whoop, having a hard time because of the projector, back to my vanishing point, and the bottom of my tree back to the vanishing point so it follows roughly the edge of the road. Then all the trees that come after this fit between those lines. So the next tree I'm going to see a little bit like this, and I'm going to make this side kind of dark. Okay? Then this tree becomes a little smaller, again overlapping the road, fits in between the lines. This tree becomes even smaller, fits between the lines, and then there's a teeny tiny tree in the distance. And you can see how my trees recede into space. Alright, so with this lesson, ladies and gentlemen, you have learned how to make things flat like a sidewalk or a road. You've learned how to make three-dimensional buildings using one-point perspective. You've learned how to put doors in those buildings, windows in those buildings, signs in those buildings. You've learned how to make other kinds of organic objects recede into space, like trees. And you've learned how to build things into the ground, like a pool. What I want you to do from this point is flip to a new sheet in your sketchbook, and I want you to just work on your own using your imagination. And I want you to build your own kind of city using perspective. This is to be practiced. You are to practice what we have just gone over together, but I want you to do it in an independent fashion. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to circulate around and help you problem solve. So I would encourage you to think about, well, how do I make a traffic light? Well, how do I make